So I feel we're not living in a free society. I feel everywhere we go there are CCTV cameras, and we're told, of course, that it will make our lives better, that it will stop crime, that everywhere we go we find ourselves with speed cameras that want to stop us, and we feel increasingly that those of us that are part of this wonderful mythical land of Middle England are the ones that effectively pay the price for things. You know, we're the people that get the knock at the door. Did you see this case of a lady at the weekend that was a Christian lady was opposed to a gay pride march, and two police officers come and knock on her door, and yet at the same time we read about those people that are serious, violent, repeat offenders who go into prison for tiny, tiny sentences and come out and do the same thing all again. So there is this feeling that law-abiding Middle England is being overtaxed, is being spied on, is being told whether it can hunt foxes, is being told whether it can smoke cigarettes, and the whole thing is completely out of control. Now, we may have a saviour, because at the Tory party conference, David Cameron stood up and said that he was going to fight and campaign for small government. Now, it sounded rather good, didn't it? And I briefly, it had been quite a heavy night at the time I saw Newsnight, and I briefly, nearly cheered, because I thought, crikey, here actually is a difference between the Labour Party and the Tory Party. And I've been going around for the last 3 or 4 years saying that you can't put a cigarette paper between them. But I thought at last, maybe there is a difference. But what did Cameron actually mean by talking about small government? Well, I suppose he did say that the Tories were going to propose spending cuts. Osborne, of course, presented this. In fact, they intend to cut government spending by the princely sum of £7 billion a year, which, of course, is less than 1% of the overall government spend. He may repeal the fox hunting ban, although personally I doubt it. He certainly has no intention of getting rid of the smoking ban, and there is no commitment from this Conservative opposition, soon perhaps to be government, to cut taxation in any way at all. But the point I want to put to you tonight is that even if we did have an opposition party worthy of that name in British politics, even if we did have a Conservative government coming into power next year that genuinely wanted to free up small businesses, that genuinely wanted to give us back our liberties, that genuinely felt it was wrong that our DNA database should be shared with a European Union centralised database, that felt that all of these things should actually be taken away from Europe, should be taken away from central government and given back to us as individual human beings, even if we had a government that genuinely was committed to those things, I'm afraid that right now it wouldn't be able to do it. And of course, the point that I'm moving on to is the fact that we are members of a European Union. Now, older members in the room may have had the opportunity to vote on this in a referendum way back in 1975. I myself was far too young to vote in that referendum, and most of you here weren't even born. But the fact is that over 75% of our laws are now made by the institutions of the European Union. And the point about European law, which gets right to the heart of the whole principle of democracy, of freedom, of us as a people being able to determine our own future, is that once something is European law, there is nothing we as voters can do ever at any subsequent general election to change that law in any way at all. You know, right now there's a big debate going on about the hedge fund directive. You might have read about it. Now perhaps you all think that people in the city are greedy, awful, terrible people. Well, perhaps some of them are. I did my best in 20 years to be one of them, but didn't succeed because here I am now. But whatever you think of those people in the city, you know, we've got to recognise that it's one of the few things that we as a country are still very, very good at. And the penny is beginning to drop with these city businesses, because they are beginning to realise that this investment directive will probably be law by Christmas. The European Parliament may amend it ever so slightly, the Council of Ministers may make one or two demands, but it will be law by Christmas, and then, if you're a hedge fund manager in the City of London, it doesn't matter a damn to you whether Gordon Brown or Call Me Dave becomes the next Prime Minister, because there's nothing they can do to change even the grammar. Nothing they can do. So the whole point about those of us that want to live in a low-tax society, that want to live in a society where government does less, that want to have a government that gets rid of excessive regulations that control our daily lives, that gets rid of the kind of regulations that prevent entrepreneurs, that stop people from going into business. The whole point about this is the only way we can achieve any of this, libertarians, is by voting in British governments who pledge to do it. But the only way we can have British governments that can make that pledge is to have British governments that have that power back. And all the while we remain part of a political union and a customs union that is called the EU, there is absolutely no chance of this massive degree of over-governance that we're all suffering from and that all of us hate ever being reversed. So we can talk until the cows come home about all of these things, but I want us free of a European Union. I want us to be trading with Europe, to be friendly with Europe. I want to vote for British governments that deregulate us. I want to have British governments that give power back to local councils. You know, Mrs. Thatcher, she so hated the extreme left that she emasculated local government in this country. But perhaps the greatest freedom of all that we can have is I really do think that the Swiss system of direct democracy is a damn sight better than the current form of parliamentary representation that we have in this country. And one of the things that we're going to push at the next general election is the idea that we should have direct democracy in this country. That if enough people sign a proper petition demanding a referendum on a key issue, they should be able to have it. And I would put it to you that that would be, in democratic terms, the ultimate freedom. You know, we've got a first-past-the-post system that has given us a set of political parties sitting in Westminster that are now virtually indistinguishable from each other. I've been talking about this cigarette paper that you can't put between Cameron and Brown and who's the Lib Dem chap? He's so boring, I've forgotten him. Clegg. You can't put a cigarette paper between them, and I've been using this as a form of insult over the last few years, and blow me down if Cameron doesn't write in the Observer the other week as a boast. You can't put a cigarette paper between us and the Lib Dems. We finished up with politics in Britain that is dead, and it is dead. We've got a parliament that doesn't legislate. We've got increasingly people that don't go out and vote, and we've got a state, both at local, at national and at European level, that is controlling every aspect of our lives, is taking away from us our ancient freedoms and rights, replacing it with a human rights culture which frankly I value as meaningless. And post the Lisbon Treaty, all of these great issues of freedom, all of the great issues of morality, no longer will those things be decided here in this country by our courts, but they'll be decided by a political court based in Luxembourg. So I'm with you, all of you in this room that want less government, that believe in liberty, that believe in freedom of choice. I'm with every single one of you. I want those things too, but until we cut the Gordian knot of European Union membership, none of it will actually be possible. Thank you very much. The other big problem, of course, is overheated buildings in this country, public buildings, including this room. And I thought we were all concerned about climate change and global warming. So why we do it is quite utterly beyond me.
To find out more about who we are and what we stand for, go to the UK Independence Party website at www.ukip.org.